I have a 2001 Volvo S60, and we're going to replace the wheel bearing. You want to jack up your vehicle, put a jack stand under there, make sure for security, and then you want to take the wheel off. That's the first thing. So once you get the wheel off, then we need to take off. We're going to need to take off the rotor, the caliper to get in here. We need to take off this nut for the axle, and then we're going to work from there. The first thing I did was I took off this this spring that's here. That's pretty easy to take off. And I think this thing was like this. It goes under here, and then that locks in there, and then so on and so forth. So all you do is you just take your screwdriver, lift up on one of these sides, and get the clip out. You do the same thing on the other side and get it out. Okay, in reverse order to put back in. You want to hook that there, and then grab something and then push it up to get them back in there. And then the caliper, we have two Allen wrench. So we need a tool for that to get behind there with an Allen wrench deal and get it out. And it has two little covers, so you have to take those covers off. And then they basically just pull out. They're right behind here. They're the guides for the actual caliper. So we want to make sure that we take those off. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now I'll bring you in real quick just so you can show you where they're at. See, if you look where the caliper is, there's one there and there's one right down below it, about 4 inches down. It's kind of hard to get you in here any closer than that because I'm working in here. And if you don't want to pull them all the way out, as long as they're loose, you could just leave them like that. I mean, it's up to you. It's your preference. As long as they're free here where the caliper will come out, then you're fine. And then, like I said, there's one on the bottom. And then once that comes out, you can take the brake pads out, or we're going to need to take the brake pads out anyway, so we want to move those out of the way. And then you want to either bungee this or put it out of the way where it's not going to fall. If you can bungee it up here, go and do that. I'm going to do that because I don't want it to fall. You can either bungee it or zip tie it. I have a zip tie here, so I'm just going to zip tie it from here so there's no strain on this brake line. We're attaching it to the actual metal, so it's a little hard to grab it and do it at the same time. Pretty big zip tie. This is a heavy duty one. You don't really need a heavy duty one, just as long as it holds it up there so it's not flopping around. Okay. So behind there we have two 15mm nuts that we need to take off for the brackets for the caliper. There's one here and there's one right underneath. They're pretty visible. Okay, so this bracket actually sits right behind the disc, like that. Okay, so when you screw it back in, let me show you. There's another, there's the bar for when you turn it. It's a limiter bar. So when you put it back in, this goes on the, there's like one metal bracket in the middle, like almost like a sandwich. So that bracket sits there, and then these two sit on the outside like that. And then this one screws into that one, and then that one screws into that one with that plate in the middle. So this goes right behind goes like this, like that, and you'll see, and then this will sit right behind it, like that, okay, when you put it back in. And then the bolts are the same size, so you don't have to worry about getting confused with those. There we go. So I'm just going to loosen that up for now. And then we'll go ahead and take off the disc. Well, loosen the disc. Loosen it first. Let's get the disc out of there. And then we want to go ahead and finish taking this off. So we got that bolt out of there. Now there is 4 bolts on the back of here. What we need to loosen these bolts here so that this comes forward a little bit so we can get the axle out. This is a 21 millimeter combo wrench, and then on the other side is a 19. So what I'm doing is basically I loosened it, I broke it loose with the 21, and then I'm just kind of working it loose so it's not spinning on me. Before I put these bolts back in, I'll put a little WD-40 on them just so they go back in a little bit easier. It's too dark. So that'll take that out. Just put those two together, that way I don't lose them. I have a 13/16, which is the only size I have. So I got it attached to a breaker bar. Hopefully I could just at least break it loose. Got it. It worked. It's such a tight fit in there, you can't get your combination wrench in there like I just did on the other side, on the top one. So I'm using the combo on the other side with the different, obviously the different size, 19. But I had to break it loose with my my bigger 3/4 inch ratchet. It's kind of like, it's not a deep socket, but it's a little bit deeper than normal. So we just want to be a little bit careful and mindful here. And now that I get this bolt out of here, this is going to want to come completely out. So I don't want to get it all the way out, I don't think. You do want to tap the inside a little bit. There it goes. Just get to those 4 bolts, and if we can get to them like that, we're good. If not, we're gonna have to hit this a little bit more and get in there. So I'm gonna try it like that for right now and see what we got going on. Okay, so there's 17 millimeters back there. You're not gonna have a whole lot of room in here, so you'll probably be able to get to a couple of them. So what the best thing, now I remember, the best thing we can do here is we want to use an extension, a small extension, not anything too long. Short extension with a 17 millimeter socket. You're probably going to need some kind of a breaker bar right here. I have a really long one. If you have a shorter one, even better. Because if not, it's going to hit up against the body of the car. That's all I got, so I got to do little short strokes here. Got that loose. Like I said, you don't have a whole lot of room in here, so just try to do the best you can with what you got. So that's one of the bolts, so there's 3 more to go. So the same thing, you're going to go around, and that's the bottom one. There's one more here up on top, and then there's 2 on the other side. There's the second bolt. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. Now these 2 are going to be the fun ones to get to. The bottom one I think we can get out. Shouldn't be too difficult, but the one on top. The one up on top might be a little bit more difficult. Just because it's... This is going to be fun because my breaker bar is getting in the way. Move the jacks. Luckily, I have this pair of jack stands with the jack. There we go. I used the deep socket 17 on the bottom, straight with the ratchet itself, and just pulled as hard as I could, and it did break loose. Like I said, if you have a small breaker bar, you can maybe something about 1 foot. Mine's is about 2 feet. It's actually the bar for my jack, the top section. Okay, so that's 3 of the bolts. That's the 3rd one. Alright, 1 more to go. That's the hard one, the one on the top. Now I'm going to try to take this bolt out of here on the top. And right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, there's a little cable on the side over here. I don't know if you can see from right there. Well, there's a cable here. There's a cable right here, and it just pulls out. There's like a little rubber thing here, like a bracket. Just be real careful when you're pulling it out. There we go. Just want to release that cable from there, because if this comes forward a little bit, we don't want it to rip. We're going to pull this out just a little bit like that, and then we're gonna tap on that axle to go back in a little bit. I'm just going to hit it with this. Okay. Like I said, we only need a little bit of room to be able to take that last bolt out. It looks like I got room now. And I should just take it all the way out. I didn't want to, but we're already here. I might as well take it out. Okay, so I got the axle out. Now it's going to be easy. Once you got that axle out, now there is a dust cover. Make sure that when you're putting it back on there, the little dust cover just goes right back in there. Okay. I pulled out most of the axle. You can see there. I did pull out most of the axle back here, and then there's one more bolt right on the top. So we're going to go ahead and try to get that out. The only drawback about getting this thing loose like that is making leverage for the last bolt. That's the problem. So what I like to do is I like to hook one bolt back onto the to this thing up here. Okay, so I just stuck one of those other bolts on there. Meanwhile, just to create kind of some support. I put the smaller ones in there because I'm having a hard time getting the original ones back in there until I'm all done. So the reason I'm doing that is that to take that back bolt off, I need leverage, and this whole thing is moving. And the only way to get leverage is to get support back up right there where it was. So, now that we got our support back, now I can try to use my little breaker bar again. Let's see if I have enough room. Too long. So I'm going to use a wrench. Basically doing this and then pulling up. Gives you a little bit of a, gives you a little bit more torque, I guess. I don't know the right word. I think you got to be careful, this thing goes flying off on you. There we go. Oh man, that was tough. Woo. I didn't have this hard of a time doing the other side. This one just, well, it is what it is. Then this piece, this whole wheel bearing will come off. And then we just reassemble it. And hopefully the reassembly is a little bit easier. Disassembling is usually easier than reassembling, but okay, there we go. So we got it out. Caked on dirt there. So we're going to match it up with the other one first. We're going to make sure we clean all this. So I'm just going to spray some brake cleaner in there. And then I'll wipe it down. I'm not sponsored or anything, but brake parts cleaner here, so we're just going to go ahead and use that. And the reason we want to clean this really good is because when we put the next one in there, we want it to go in pretty easy. We don't have a problem getting it in there. So if you have a little scrub brush or something, go ahead and scrub that here. And I'm just going to kind of scrub it. Try to get all that caked on stuff off of there. And then the same thing right here on the base. Just give it a quick little cleaning. And then just get a clean rag and wipe it, clean it, get it all clean. Almost as good as new. Okay, let's grab our new part. See if it matches up. So I ordered this one on eBay from AM Auto Parts. See what we got. I think we got it for about 36 bucks. Shipping and everything, you can't beat that. I think my local store wanted about $70, $80, so they're crazy. Anyways, so let's make sure it matches up first. So let's look at the back sides of this. So this is the old one. And this is the new one. Looks pretty similar there. This looks all the same. Flip it over. Make sure the holes line up, which they do. Make sure the bottom ones line up. They do. And then you can test fit it here on the axle, just to make. So then you can also test fit it right here on the axle. just to make sure. Yeah, it goes in. Look at that. I'm going to go ahead and re-put this back in here. And then we'll start with that hardest bolt. Get that in there. Actually, you know what? Let me put a little bit of WD-40 on those bolts. That way they go in there a little bit easier. It just makes it easier to put them in. Just a little bit. Take the other one back off. Spray a little WD-40 on it. Now the other two bolts, I actually have them up here on the tower, supporting that thing for me. So I'll have to take those off right now. We did take these off with the breaker bar, so we want to make sure to tighten them back down the same way. So right now I'm just going to hand tighten them like this. See if I can get my breaker bar on this side, make it easier for me. I said before, so I'm just gonna try to use the wrench. Got the two top ones tightened. Now we're gonna do the two bottom ones. So I'm gonna need to take, obviously, out of here. Going WD-40 that one. The bottom one on. I'm going to tighten one of them, and then the last one, I think I'll be able to tighten that once I get that top bolt back up there. So what we're going to do is we're going to push this over, see if I can get one of these big bolts back in there, tighten it, and then we'll take it out when we're done. Okay, let's tighten this up. Now right here I can get the breaker bar in here because I have the axle so pulled out so far that I can tighten it. This makes it real easy right here. And now I'm going to tighten those other ones because now I have it moved in a certain way where I can just double check them. I do need to go to a smaller socket. Now I can tighten this down where I want it. I can make sure. A little extra tug there. It's nice and tight right there. Especially with the breaker bar. Alright. That's what I wanted. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to put that one back up there and try to get one of these other nuts up there. There we go. I can get that other one out. And then put the last one in there. Okay, got it out. And then we'll WD-40 that one. That last one in there. Down. I want to put the nut on the bottom one so that way it can swing out like I did earlier. That's what I'm going to do. Well, so far I've been just using the nuts that I had here just to kind of give myself leverage. So now I'm going to tighten that bottom one up. And we'll have the wheel bearing all nice and tight. Perfect. We won't have to worry about that. We didn't torque it down with enough force. Not sure what these are. You might want to look at your book, your manual, what they're spec'd at. I go a little bit more off of feel. So really, really tight. Tight them almost as much tight as I took them off. Okay. So, so now we'll go like this. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the dust cover that came off. I'm going to put that back in there. I think the deeper side goes to the outside because it has two different sides. One side's a little bit higher up and then one side's a little bit lower down. Put the side that's lower down because it's got to sit on here. So if you go the other way, it doesn't go in. See that? So that means it's got to go in like this. So if it sits flat like that, then this side goes, the opposite side goes in. So we get that in there, get our axle back in there, and then kind of just pull it just a little bit. Don't yank on the axle, just kind of guide it to where it just barely goes in. We don't want to pull it. And then let the screw grab it, if possible. Just kind of lift this up a little bit. See if it'll grab a little. There we go. It grabbed a little bit there. I don't want to tighten it yet. I want to get it up there and tighten it. So then next what we're going to do is we're going to push this back. We're going to put the big bolt up on top. Okay, there it is. Lined it up. Just look in the hole to see if you're getting it in there. Once you got one in there, the second one should be a little bit easier. So I'm just going to put the nut on it for now. We got this top nut in, and we're just going to put the bolt in. I'm trying to put the back end of the nut. Spray a little bit of WD-40 on it. Hopefully it goes in a little bit easier. So just kind of get it to where it's on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom one off and put the one that's supposed to go on there on the bottom part. Just like that should go back and forth, and then just jiggle it in there, and then get the bottom bolt on there, and then you can put your plug back in. Now that plug right there, you can just go like this. Watch. Just pull it until it snaps in. Pull it till it snaps in. Don't try to slide it in. And then that's that. So we're going to tighten up this top bolt and the bottom bolt. So we're going to need our 21mm socket and combo wrench, or a socket, and just hold it in place. Make sure they're both on tighten mode, and then just start tightening them. Nice and tight. And now we're going to do the top one. We could use the same setup if we want. Just make sure that just make sure this side isn't spinning when you're turning or tightening this one down at the end. Okay, so we got that down. We got the 4 bolts in. We got this tied. We put our sensor back on, and then now it's time to we can torque this down if we want. That way we can get it done. 14mm. This is basically going to bring the axle out like it's supposed to be. Now this thing is, it's good tight, but not like, oh my god, you know, break it tight, okay? It's pretty. Step is, we're going to put the rotor on. And it does have a hole right here for the screw. And this thing has like 3 or 4 different holes that you can try to line it up to. Same thing. I'm just going to put a little WD-40 on this screw, and then just try to line up your nut holes for the wheel, and then get this screw on there and then hand tighten it. Now this doesn't go super, I mean, it goes tight. Hand, pretty much right there. Don't go too tight because you'll snap it and it'll break. This is not a great screw, so it's tight enough to keep it on here, and then when you put the wheel on there, that'll actually hold everything in place. But nice and tight, but not too tight, maybe 10-15 pounds if that. I don't think it's even tighter as that tight. Check your specs if you're not sure, if you're worried. Okay, so the next step is going to be to put the, now we're going to, move back just a sec. Next step is now we're going to put the bar and the bracket for the caliper. This is the limiter bar for the steering. So I'm going to put that in on the back. Just kind of attach that there and put the screws, not all the way in. Just flush with the bracket. You'll see it because those screws have to go into here. Okay? So we want to make sure the bracket goes like that. We want to put that in there like that, and then these screws are going to mount onto here. Then just tighten those down. Once again, all right, we want to get those screws in there. This was some WD-40 on here. Make sure the screws are nice and loose, so then that way makes it a little bit easier to get them in there. Don't put them all the way through. Get them enough to where they'll at least stay there, and then get your bracket on there, and then just kind of move them up and down until you line them up. Once you line them up, they basically just screw in. And then proceed to tighten them down. There's a 15 millimeter. So your brake brackets, make sure they're tight. You don't want these getting loose and starting to rattle, make noise. You might need an extension here or there to be able to tighten them down. The bottom one didn't need one, the top one needs a small extension because there's a bolt right there and I don't want it's hitting up against it when I'm trying to tighten it. Okay, those are nice and tight. Okay, the next step is going to be get your brake pads, and you're going to set them right there. There's one. Find out where our other one is. Oh, the one's on there. Okay. Okay. Okay, then the other brake pad is actually on the caliper. So we're gonna cut the caliper, cut the zip tie, or if you have a bungee, whatever it is that you used, get that down. I'm going to get ready to mount this. This is on the wrong side. So it goes on this side. This one goes here. The other one stays snapped in there because it has a bracket for that. It goes in there, and then it just goes like that. Okay, and then we're going to tighten the 2 screws on the back, and then the last thing would be to put our little covers on, and then we'll put our little spring on there. So we need our tool, our little Torx tool. And we gotta line those up too. So be mindful to line them up. Find the hole. Usually when it's sitting on there like that, they're pretty lined up. So once you start going in, you'll feel that the screw's going in. And what I like to do is I do a little bit on the top, and then I do a little bit on the bottom. Make sure you push the screw in. Make sure it's going in. And then what I do is I kind of wiggle the caliper so that the screw kind of gets free in case it binds and then it goes in. So make sure you torque those down as well. You might need an extension. I believe I think it's showing that it's a 7, I don't know if it's a 7mm Allen size. Now these ones, they're tight, but not excessively tight. Maybe 10 pounds, 15 pounds, somewhere in there. Right around there. That's that. Make sure to put your little dust caps on there. On the back of those. And then we're going to go ahead and put our spring on here. So this thing basically holds the pad in place. So we want to go under here, like so. And then this is going to twist and go that way. So normally I like to do is put one in there. Get them like that. At least get one and then get the other one and go underneath. And then come back this way and go like that. So hook one in. Make sure they're all the way in too. I usually like to tap them. Make sure they're all the way in. So you stick one in, hook it under, and then get the back part and then pull it and push it over and then push it in the hole. And that pretty much does that. So that pretty much does it for here. All we need to do now, I like to do is go back, make sure I remember to tighten everything down. I did these two. I put the bracket back on there. I did the 4 there. Those are torqued down. I torqued those 2 for the bracket for the limiter arm and the caliper. And then the 2 guides for the caliper, we tighten those down. And then the spring is the last thing. And then that's pretty much it. I'll spray a little bit of a brake cleaner on the pad in case I got some grease on there. And get a clean rag. And I'll give it just like a quick wipe down. And then just give it one with no, I don't even clean that. The back I can't really get to, so I'm not going to really mess with that. And just push the plate back in case you bent it. Make sure you don't want to have it scraping. Sometimes what happens if you're messing with it, you're hitting it forward, you end up bending it a little bit, and then you're driving and you start hearing like a scraping sound, and that's the last thing you want to do. So just make sure you kind of push it back a little bit and make sure it's not scraping. I mean, I can't move this right now because this is a front wheel drive, so it's not going to let me spin the wheel. Next thing to do is put the wheel on, and we're pretty much done. What I usually do is I get underneath it with my legs, because support it and then try to line up the holes. That's usually the easiest way to do it. Make sure you have jack stands under your car. Don't do this with a jack. Very dangerous. Jack can fall, crush your legs. If you're paralyzed, it's not a good thing for anybody. So just kind of start these by hand. And then as you start to tighten them up, you're going to crisscross them. Here, 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 here. And then go back again, tighten them 2 or 3 times to get them nice and torqued down. So I'll do this and I'll get them as tight as I can get them with the car in the air, and then I'll lower the car slowly with a little bit of tire pressure on the floor. And then I'll torque them down with my breaker bar. I'll get them really tight. So again, I'm just like getting them, reaching them to pretty much like, they're all pretty much just, I mean, this is just hand tight right now. You don't really want to torque them down with this in the air because you put a lot of tension on the on your axle and you might snap something. So you don't really want to torque them, but you want to get them a little bit tight because you don't want to lower it down and then have the wheel snap your lug nut. So right now we're just going to go across. Like almost like a star pattern. So basically here, 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 here. No matter where you start. You start here, you're going to go here, 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 here. So just go across from where you're at to a different one. Okay? So I kind of tighten them up, not super tight, but they're torqued down a little bit where I know the wheel's not going to move as soon as I put it on the ground. So now what I need to do is I need to jack it up. Once I jack it up, then I'll go ahead and take the jack stand off and I'll lower the car to the ground. And with the car on the ground, then I'll go ahead and I'll finish torquing them. Just remember when you're jacking up your car that you're getting either double reinforced steel underneath, or maybe on the control arm or somewhere on there. Something that really looks heavy duty under there. Don't start putting it on a real thin piece of metal. Then you end up crushing it. End up damaging the bottom of your car. So right now I got my jack stand right there. So I just basically need to lift it up enough just to get my jack stand lowered. Just have a quick release on there. Basically quick releases and it comes straight down. So now I'm going to slowly lower it as slow as I can. Now sometimes this is impossible, but because you got to turn this and try to lower it at the same time. Sometimes it wants to come fast like that. Just like that. We didn't want that to happen, but it did. Anyways, this is real life stuff. So that's fully on the ground. That's like barely on the ground. So we're going to go barely on the ground. And I'm going to torque it down just hand tight with this little deal here. Now I'm going to lower it all the way down. And now we're going to torque it down with our tool here, with our breaker bar. Now these are usually torqued down probably 150, 160 pounds. So I like to get it nice and tight. I don't jump on this breaker bar. I go right there to where it's pretty tight. If it was just a small bar, I would jump on it if that's all I had. But I wouldn't do it with a breaker bar. You can actually snap the nut. Just don't. So then I'm going to get one last turn. I'm going to do the same thing again. Just all of them, just like a gift. They should be all nice and snug now. They really shouldn't move. All right, we're good. So that's pretty much it. It's quite a bit of work to replace that wheel bearing. I said, if you have any questions, comments, leave them below, or hit me up if you need any information. Having the right tools is obviously the most important thing. I had to do this on a whim, and I had to get it done today. So I work with what I have, and I got it done. It did take me a little bit longer than I expected, but we got it done. Hopefully you guys, this video helped somebody out there. Thanks for watching.